We are El Cielo, also known as the Little Einsteins fan club. Um, yeah, so I'm Oliver Berggren, and I'm the game lead for El Cielo. In El Cielo, you play as a kid on a ranch in rural Mexico who has dreams of going to space. Through the lens of magical realism, you put together like this fantastical spaceship with household objects, and you perceive the world through the running imagination and curiosity of a child. Um, Today, we'll be showcasing our core game loop and how it works in both VR and standard input.
For sure. So like Oliver said, he's Oliver, he's our game lead. I'm Sophia, I'm the producer, and this is the little Einsteins, the rest of the team. We're the little Einsteins because we're going on a trip in our favorite rocket ship. Um, and yeah, so these are the faces that bless us on Zoom every week. Um, Daniel and Ismail are programmers. Misael and Pure are our 3D artists. Misael also doubles as our research lead. Nishant is our sound designer. Ethan, Jose, Juan, and Miriam are all of our narrative team. And yeah, we've got a bigger narrative team than kind of the rest of our sections because narrative is a huge part of our game. It's what we want to concentrate on making the most of our like puzzles are based on the narrative. And we of course we want to make this like a culturally accurate and culturally sensitive game. So we have two sensitivity readers that both have experience in rural Mexico and then are also willing to do the research for our game. So yeah, that's our team right now.
Yeah, so to get into more of the narrative side of things, there's first like two distinctions that are worth making. Sort of conceptualizing it for the initial pitch, and then also once we formulated our amazing narrative team, the different inspirations that sort of came from that. Um, when I was first pitching the game, it was more so derived from like my own upbringing. I'm originally from Mexico. I was born there, and my early upbringing was there as well. And I spent a lot of my time sort of caught up in my head, repurposing like random things and building sort of whatever my imagination had kind of wanted me to do, I guess. Um, but once we'd sort of started development and formulated our narrative team, um, there were sort of three main themes that we worked with. Um, yeah, so we wanted to tell a culturally faithful story. Um, Latin American countries tend to be very traditional and have a very rigid set of morality. Um, Guillermo del Toro would take an ideal or symbol and sort of bring it into fantasy, um, somewhere outside of self-reinforcing reality where that idea in question can't be questioned. And in El Cielo, we sort of follow suit in some ways. The kid exists outside of the norm of working class Mexican upbringing, um, and the kid himself is too young to see like them as a part of other people's world. They see the world as their own, uh, and as a result, we're telling a story where the kid doesn't feel confined by tradition, capitalism, and so forth, but these concepts are most definitely pervasive in the game world. The kid just doesn't have the faculties to actually perceive them. Um, the protagonist, like most kids, has an overactive imagination and sees the world differently. Um, by incorporating Gabriel Garcia Marquez's concept of magical realism, we're able to actually materialize the kid's imagination in the game world. And in writing our narrative, we get this very convenient line to walk between truth and fiction. Um, yeah, so in all, like we wanted to tell a wholesome story, really just about following your imagination. Um, it's a common premise in a lot of Latin American media, but it gets juxtaposed by sort of a ruthless world and inevitable tragedy. In comparison, we wanted to do nothing but just foster this kid's pursuit of, his dream spaceship and let them perceive a world in which they actually become an astronaut.
Yeah, so with that in mind and like those core inspirations in mind, our narrative team has been working really hard on these like various storyboards and puzzles that we kind of go over every week and refine. It might not show in our like game loop today, but we have a lot of mechanics that we're hoping to implement about you know, combining two items that you wouldn't expect to make another item. So in the theme of magical realism, you know, actually like kind of making it to space in some weird abstract way. And yeah, so we've got a lot of like storyboards and puzzles kind of based on mechanics found in like Resident Evil and Untitled Goose Game, where we want kind of the items and what you do with them to speak for themselves and kind of like tell the surrounding story and like kind of explain the world that you live in. So and that goes for both like culturally and like just like in terms of this kid's imagination. We wanted the items and what you do with them to speak for all of that kind of stuff. And I mentioned Resident Evil and Untitled Goose Game, but this also kind of is in the style of like Gone Home, where you're just walking through the house picking stuff up. Except we wanted to add that extra thing of like, oh, you're also using these objects in like a meaningful way to like build this rocket ship. So yeah, that's for storyboards and like level design. Oh, this is loading very, very quickly. These are some of our early concepts of the game. So what we wanted the UI to look like and what we kind of expected to see with this like magical realism and putting on your helmet, how that changes the way you view things. I think one of the most important concepts on here is probably the bottom right image, where you have these like finger guns and you use those like, because in a lot of, you know, first person games you have a gun that you can like shoot a projectile from, but in our game we're like, it doesn't really make sense that this kid has like any kind of projectile, but at the same time we did want to include that mechanic in case there were things that we needed to like shoot off of a different shelf or something like that. So in our heads, it made the most sense to just like have finger guns or like even a water gun or something like that, and it shoots something. And that's in the same vein of magical realism and kind of taking like classic video game style, like video game mechanics, and making them fit into our world, like through that theme. Yeah. So how did we get there? From all those concepts to like an actual game. We live in spreadsheet hell. And I specifically live in our Google Drive. And I check things off and I read everyone's stuff, and that's really fun. But that's how you make a game, you know? So we're really big on documentation. That's what most of our like work has been so far. We document what everyone does, how it's going, as of recently, thanks to a recent lecture, how much time people spend on things. But yeah, we also want to make sure that everyone has an idea of, and regardless of what role they play, has an idea of how to set up this game, at least in like the basics. So we have a document just explaining how do you put an item in the game? How do you make sure the player can pick it up? Oliver has been working on this great like modular texture system to make sure that textures that come from Blender are like drag and drop into Unreal Engine. So that kind of stuff has been really helpful. And of course, because narrative again is a huge part of our game, we also have a like full narrative folder in our drive. That's like, I don't even know how many documents are in there right now. That has things like colloquial terms that we can use when we're writing, in the case that not everyone on the narrative team speaks Spanish. And then of course, like farming research, like what would their father on this farm like even be doing every day? Like what kind of crops do they make? What kind of assets should we make? And then of course, like basic narrative stuff, like what do we want like the plot to look like? It's not a hero's journey, so what would it be? And yeah, so, and of course like family trees and stuff like that. So we have all that documentation on the left just to make things on the right. And it doesn't all show yet, but even in terms of like this kid's clothes, like we have reference pictures for that, and like bug reports for the bug that we found recently. But yeah, that's kind of how production goes for our team. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so in making this game, VR wasn't at all an afterthought. It was something that we knew was going to be in there from the get-go. Um, and yeah, the narrative and core game loop were specifically tailored for it. We do support standard input, but that was originally the goal, was for it to have deeply integrated VR. Uh, and in the process of making the game, we wanted to make sure that like it didn't feel like just a generic first person shooter that was ported to VR. We wanted it to actually feel like the game felt different. And we've done a number of things like the player's scale, for example, is much shorter than like the generic super soldier of an FPS game. Um, we've it creates this whole new perspective with how you see the world around you when every pickup is much bigger, because for all of a sudden you're a 6-year-old kid instead of whoever you actually are. Um, in terms of actually designing it, it's been really important to keep the VR foot forward. With every feature that gets implemented, it has to be implemented across two different entire systems of play. Um, and that includes inputs and optimization and all these other things that we realized very early that we had to start with all of the basic VR functionality, both like Unreal's default one and just with how we were designing objects, and then bring things into regular input. And we've gotten to a point where we have this kind of homeostasis of like we can work on one feature in standard and VR at the same time, and then in one git commit we'll have both of them for both platforms. But in terms of like the design, like our amazing programming team has done an amazing job of creating these polymorphic object types that use Unreal's like interfaces and everything to have the same functionality overridden between different inputs. So we don't have to design the same game twice. We can work with a lot of the same thing, thanks to work in that regard. And these are just some screenshots of development stuff and testing. But yeah, I think next is our VR demo. So
Yes, this is our VR demo. Let me make sure that this is optimized for video. Um, is this good? Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, this was Oliver kind of testing out our VR build in our VR test map because it's not in our regular map yet. But yeah, you can drink out of the cup, kind of place the cup down where it needs to go. Yeah, and you can do this for every object. We've also implemented this highlight, although it is a little bit weird right now. Yeah, so you can place down all your objects, kind of try to put this hat on. And then, yeah, so you have to like rotate them around and try to set them down exactly in their position. But yeah, and then we're still using kind of this teleportation system to go places. But yeah, this is our crawl space, which we're hoping to make a big part of this, or make a part of this game. You actually physically have to crawl to get under here. So, Oliver is like on his hands and knees in this demo.
My roommate walked in as I was doing this too.
But yeah, you have to crawl to make sure you don't hit anything, mess around with this like little train, and then put it together. Yeah. And that's what we've got in terms of VR stuff right now. But yeah, that's our VR demo. And now for our oh no, don't play again. Don't do that. Now for our regular standard demo from a completely random playtester that I definitely did not have download before this. Maybe I can get Herman Wu out here to play test our game.
I can't screen share.
I will stop sharing. Thank you, Herman Wu. Completely picked out from the crowd.
Do you hear sound?
Nope.
Shit.
There's a little box you can click before sharing.
Or I all tabbed out of it and then I guess the music stopped. Or do you hear it now?
I hear music.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I can. How do I exit? R to drop the item. I can store. I can't store the brick. I can't drop. Oh, leave the inspection. Okay. It's not a. Okay. I will take everything. Oh, wait. I bet I put the crayons in here. I don't know how to open my inventory. All right, I guess I fucked it up.
No.
I'll store Stuffy. Can I climb this? I can't.
Do you want to know how to open your inventory?
Yeah.
Tab. Sorry.
Cool.
And you right click to grab an item out. It'll just drop.
I'm trying that. I can't exit the inventory. I can't do anything.
Did it break?
Oh no.
No.
I can't do anything. Should I restart the game?
Yes.
All right. I
I'm
can't
so
pause
sorry.
the game either. Uh-oh.
Just close it. Oh no. I'm so sorry.
I'm going. I'll try not to
Never happened before.
break the game.
Always fun to have different hardware try. Really good playtest.
Thank you for trying that.
Also, always good to get new problems.
Okay, I'm not going to store it this time. Rotate it in place. I'm going to align it. I didn't do anything. Did it? Okay, I don't know why I did it that time. Did it do it? I guess it did. All right, I'm not going to. Oh, okay. This should go up there. Oh, okay. Okay, there we go. And then Stuffy. I can't tell what direction I'm supposed to rotate it. Like, I can see there's a sphere somewhere, so I'm guessing that's the tail. So I think it's on Stuffy's back. Man, oh man, it's so hard to rotate. I don't know how to roll the thing. Okay.
You're valid.
There we go.
Yay.
I want to play outside.
Watch that buggy door.
Yeah. I live in an abandoned house.
I'm sorry about the wallpaper. It's just development textures.
This feels very empty and scary.
I'm glad. Be scared. Thank you.
Oh,
but yeah, we're out of time pretty much.
Oh, okay.